Hi everyone, my name is Alex Frappier.
And my name is Nyla Bouchard-Wemagons.
We are here to share with everyone the journey of our research project entitled Transform Nations.
And we're working with YouthRex and we're based in Sudbury.
The goal of our project was to interact with the public in order to help us transform 3 misrepresented First Nations figurines and transform them into 2021 First Nations peoples.
Kwekwe, Zigwankwe Nadijnakas, Atikdo Dem, Wolf Lake First Nation Dunjaba, Algonquin Nishnabé Kwe Ndao. Hi, my name is Joey-Lynn. I'm the project lead for Transform Nations. So this project got started in the summer of 2021. I was at my friend's house and we were sorting her Lego from when she was a kid for her children. As we were looking through the Lego, I noticed 3 distinct pieces, all of them with headdresses, feathers, and regalia. And I asked my friend what these were, and I was a bit horrified by them. And she apologized and said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that I had those." So what happened was she gave them to me, and I decided to use them as an education tool, hence Transform Nations. Miigwech.
As you can see from first glance, there are many racist stereotypes found on these minifigures. Think about when you last saw an Indigenous member of your community, whether it was at the grocery store, at a recreational facility, or even in your neighborhood. Were their faces painted? Did they have braided hair? Were they carrying around weapons such as a bow and arrow? Were they wearing articles of clothing typically associated with their culture such as a headdress or a breechcloth? I'm certain the majority of you viewers answered no to most or all of these questions. So why would it be okay to portray Indigenous people to society through minifigures that include all of these stereotypes? A very important part of truth and reconciliation of First Nations peoples is to observe and appreciate the diversity of each and every individual. This project aims to do just that by transforming these misrepresented minifigures into a more accurate version of today's First Nations peoples.
Now that we have introduced our misrepresented First Nations minifigures, now we have to talk about what steps that we take to transform them. First of all, we generated 5 questions in which we wanted to seek transformation. We wanted to know what their new names would be, what their pronouns and gender identities would be, what they would be wearing, what their new occupation would be, and where would they be located. Now that we had our ideas drawn out, we had to figure out a way to effectively reach the public and ask them these questions in order to interact with them and receive ideas for transformation. We decided to do this through 2 main ways. The first one was through social media platforms, and the second one was through public information booths.
We decided to use social media platforms to educate and interact with members of the community. These included Instagram, our most popular account with almost 150 followers, as well as Facebook and even TikTok. Our goal is to increase our number of followers in order to gather as many different ideas as possible in terms of transformation for our minifigures. After presenting our project's mission to the public, we grew our fan base by making educational content providing background. Educating our followers on Indigenous representation and culture appropriation was crucial to help create our characters' new profiles. Afterwards, we started asking what kind of changes the public would like to see on the minifigure. We seek different possibilities for names, gender identity and sexual orientation, articles of clothing, occupation, and location. Once we created our new characters, we shared our ideas, the process of change, as well as the final results with our followers to show them our progress. It was also important to interact with them and let them know that all of our changes were based on public submissions since this was an interactive project.
Here's an example of how our info booth looked the other day. And here on display we have our poster that has all the links to our social medias and QR codes where you could visit. And then we had a picture of our minifigures just to show people what we're starting with. And then we also had the questions we would like people to answer and to gather information from. And people would also answer the questions that are on display there on a blank sheet with a Lego figure, and then they could add their ideas and decorate the Lego figure however they'd like. And if you visited our booth, you could also follow us on social media. And if you follow us from social media, your name would be entered into a draw to win a gift card.
Our information booths proved to be very successful. All of these drawings are submissions from the public suggesting character traits that they would like to see on our transformed minifigures. This provided us with a long list of ideas to choose from, and as a team, we looked at all of these options and created 3 new character profiles. After that, with the help of our Indigenous Youth Artist Grant, we were able to bring our ideas to life as he designed and painted the minifigures into what we idealized them to be. We also designed new backgrounds with some Lego pieces, as well as adding some extra details. Formerly known as Beijing, or One in Anishinaabemowin, this minifigure has been transformed into Dr. Jackie. Dr. Jackie, they them, is a two-spirited family physician working on the reserve that they grew up in, located in Chaging, on Anishinaabe territory. It was important to portray this minifigure as being two-spirited, as it is an identity that is found in Indigenous culture. Dr. Jackie strongly values giving back to their reserve through modern medicine as well as traditional medicine. Dr. Jackie is located in their office, which is a bright and welcoming environment that also includes cute decorations and even an examination table. It shows their colorful personality while also providing comfort for their patients. Our second minifigure, who was previously known as Niche, or Two in Anishinaabemowin, is now known as Nat, she/her, an Indigenous activist and land defender. Nat represents the numerous Indigenous activists found throughout Canada that fight for the continued issues that affect First Nations communities. In this setting, she is found at the Canadian Parliament holding a peaceful protest while holding a Wet'suwet'en ensign, signifying her support of the First Nations community in British Columbia that is currently fighting to defend their land. Currently, pipeline companies are attempting to build a pipeline that runs through their unceded territory. Finally, formerly known as Sway, or 3 in Anishinaabemowin, this minifigure has been transformed into Cole, he/him. He is a post-secondary student enrolled in the Indigenous Social Work program. Cole is wearing a modern but traditional outfit that includes a ribbon shirt along with jeans and moccasins. He is located on his reserve, where he is found participating in his First Nation community's powwow.
Now that we've completed our project, we will now be auctioning off these minifigures and their sets through social media on Facebook. With the proceeds that will be gathered through these auctions, we will be making a donation to the Indian Residential School Survivors Society.
What are the strengths of the Transform Nations project?
I think one of our strengths within the Transform Nations projects was that it was Indigenous led. Our leader was Indigenous, and we also had Indigenous staff within the project.
Another one of the strengths is the participation that we got. Obviously, myself and Nyla being youth members of the community, as well as the interaction with a lot of other youth members in our community, especially through Laurentian University. I think that it was great to educate all the youth and to interact with this audience.
We also have knowledge about how harmful stereotypes are, while also teaching people how harmful they are to Indigenous people.
What were the weaknesses in the Transform Nations project?
A big weakness that we experienced, that hopefully none of you will have to experience, is that we did this project through the COVID-19 pandemic in 2021. This unfortunately had a negative effect on the timeline of our project. It lasted about 2 to 3 months longer than we were anticipating.
Another weakness we had was our time, and all of our team had busy schedules, and we just didn't really have the time for this project.
And a final piece, our social media, we were hoping that it would do better. We were hoping that we would gather a bigger audience and then we would have more interaction through our social media platforms. However, that wasn't the case, but we did manage with this difficulty. Thanks to our in-person booths, we got a lot of interaction and ideas through our booths, and we found a way around the problem.
What do you think the impact is on the proper representation of Indigenous people as a result of this project?
I believe a big thing that came out of this project was demonstrating the beauty of diversity of Indigenous populations. Not only is each and every First Nations unique and diverse, but also the Indigenous people that you see throughout your community. They're not all the same. You cannot all identify them through stereotypes that are seen on these Legos at the beginning of this project.
So another impact of our proper representation would be for the Indigenous people to see themselves reflected in mainstream media. So this would just help them, you know, see themselves in what they're watching.
And finally, we were really able to deliver this message effectively using an icon that a lot of people know in their day-to-day lives. Everyone has played with Legos at one point or another in their lives, and by relating this powerful message to something that everyone knows like a Lego, we were able to change the perspective of each and every of a lot of people in order to demonstrate how these Legos were misrepresented and how we can change to make them look like a more modern Indigenous person.
So you want to create this project in your community. Awesome. We have 5 steps that you can follow in order to create this program. Number 1 is organizing your team. So thinking about organizing your team and who should be involved. It should first and foremost be Indigenous-led, always Indigenous-led. Thinking about who else, you'll need someone to lead, you'll need to ensure that you have youth as part of your project. Also looking at communications, public relations, and also social media. Number 2 is to identify. So identify what needs to be changed, and also not only that, but why does it need to be changed? So whatever object or item that you're going to be working with, thinking about what needs to be changed and educating the public on why. That's important. So that's where your social media is going to come in. Number 3 is planning. So make your plan. Who is doing what? How are you going to reach your audience? What info are you going to include? What info are you going to gather? And what are you going to do with the information that you gather? Number 4 is implementation. So that's the doing stage. Gathering the info, discussing what information is gathered with your team, creating a plan for the artist to transform the item that you have. Consensus is going to be needed for the mock-up of the transformed item that you have. And then also giving the object to the artist and having him complete that transformation. And then also having the final result. So sharing that final result with public, so the social media. So that's step 1 to 4. Number 5, which is sometimes overlooked, is assessing and evaluating. So being able to go back and look and see what strengths there were in the project, what weaknesses you had, and how to improve.